Good morning. We're learning the laws of the 9 days. We're going to start today from the Mishnah Berurah in Tav Kuf Nun Aleph, Tes, which is 551.9, and today we're going to talk about the custom to not eat meat during the 9 days. Right now we're in the 9 days, which is the period of mourning before Tisha B'Av, before the destruction of the temple, where the customs of mourning are more intense. We don't launder clothes now. We don't wear freshly laundered clothes. We still don't shave. We don't go swimming, and also we still don't listen to music, and we don't eat meat and drink wine. So let's learn a little bit about that custom. So yesh noagim shelo la'echol basar v'shelo lishtos yain b'Shabbos zu. There is a custom to not eat meat and to not drink wine during the week of Tisha B'Av. Now, this is the first opinion of the Shulchan Aruch. Now, the week of Tisha B'Av means if Tisha B'Av is on a Wednesday, the week of Tisha B'Av would be from the beginning of the week, from Saturday night until Wednesday. But this year, Tisha B'Av is on Sunday, so there is no week of Tisha B'Av. Umuter b'chometz shel yain, but one is allowed to have vinegar, which originated from wine. So if wine turns to vinegar, then you could consume it. V'yeshem osifin merosh chodesh ad tainus. There are those that add from Rosh Chodesh until Tisha B'Av, and that's our custom. We observe these customs from Rosh Chodesh Av, which was the Shabbos, till Tisha B'Av. V'yeshem osifin meyud zayin b'Tammuz, and some don't eat meat or drink wine from the 17th of Tammuz until Tisha B'Av, which is the entire 3 weeks, which is not our custom. Says the Rambam, umatzniyin merosh chodesh ve'elach hasakin shel shchita. From Rosh Chodesh Av, we hide the slaughtering knife to use to slaughter animals. She'en shelchten ki im l'tzarek mitzvah, because we only shecht animals during this time if it's for a mitzvah, kidon lachole or Shabbos or Mila, or like what would be a mitzvah during this time to shecht? For a sick person who needs to eat meat, or for Shabbos, or for a bris or kiyotze bo, and similar things, right? For Shabbos, even a Shabbos which comes in the 9 days, we're allowed to eat meat. So this past Shabbos, which was Rosh Chodesh Av, we were allowed to eat meat, even though it was during the 9 days. Let's see the Mishnah Berurah. Shelo la'echol basar, umiyad shehispalul hakahal arvis b'motzi Shabbos. So this is in the first opinion that the custom was only for the week of Tisha B'Av not to eat meat and drink wine. And it says as soon as the congregation prays on Saturday night, Mariv, that's when it starts. Afal pi shehayachid lo hispal adayin v'hu b'toch su'udah. So even though the individual didn't pray yet, and he's still in the middle of his meal, he has to stop eating meat. So, according to this, you're in the middle of eating a meat shalshudus, which is not so common, but let's say you're eating a meat shalshudus, and the shul, they're davening Mariv, and you're still eating, so you have to stop eating, even though you didn't daven Mariv yet. Asur basar b'yayin. V'hu adin b'rosh chodesh l'didan. And this is the same law for us on Rosh Chodesh. So, you're eating meat the night before Rosh Chodesh Av, and the shul davens Mariv, you got to stop eating meat. That's one opinion. But other rabbis write, the b'motzi Shabbos imhu lo ispalel adayin. If you didn't daven yet, muter b'basar v'yayin. He says no. If you're eating meat and wine on Saturday night, you are still allowed to continue eating meat and wine. What's the reason? The kevin she'omer b'tzei b'birkas hamazon shayach etzel Shabbos, still considered Shabbos because you say b'tzei. Because sometimes people finish Shal Shudas way after Shabbos, and you daven Mariv much later. And what do you do in benching when you finish Shal Shudas way after Shabbos? You say Ritzei. You say the blessing for Shabbos, even though it's technically not Shabbos, but the meal is still a Shabbos meal. So according to this opinion, you can continue eating meat. Okay, umuter b'chometz says you're allowed to drink vinegar. Hainu af b'chometz shenas miyayin ukishnech n'shabbazu hayadayin yayin muter kemen she'akshav b'chometz ve'en simcha b'shtiyah. So v'chometz l'nyanon mikri kol shebnei adam nimnaim l'shtos mibnei chimutz. He says that the vinegar you're allowed to drink, obviously just regular vinegar you could drink, but vinegar which came from wine, you're allowed to drink. So even at the beginning of Shabbos it was wine, but at the end of Shabbos something went wrong and now it's vinegar, you're allowed to drink it. And because you don't get simcha, people get happiness when they drink wine, but they don't get happiness when they drink vinegar. They don't become happy when they drink vinegar. And he says vinegar means anything that people would not want to drink from because it fermented too much and became vinegar. Okay, Rosh Chodesh ad tainus, Rosh Chodesh b'chalal. Rosh Chodesh is part of the 9 days. V'chein minig b'medinaseinu. Like we mentioned, this is the custom. The custom for us is that from Tisha B'Av until from Rosh Chodesh until Tisha B'Av we drink wine. We do not drink wine and eat meat. Shabbos b'Tammuz. The me'as hiskol aporning shel chorban. Now the reason for the custom for those that don't eat meat or drink wine from Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, the reason there is because that's when all the trouble started with the destruction. Right? That's when the Romans breached the walls in the Second Temple. All of this is during the week. He says on Shabbos, even if you want to be stringent and not eat meat or drink wine during the 3 weeks, he says you should not be stringent on Shabbos. You should eat meat on Shabbos. Rishon Mutter is even if Tisha B'Av, sometimes Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbos and we push it off till Sunday. Even on that Shabbos, the day before Tisha B'Av, you're allowed to eat meat. Ukilakaman. Right, and this year, Tisha B'Av is the Shabbos is the day before Tisha B'Av. You're allowed to eat meat. Vafilim kibu alav beferish shalech al basar miyud zayin b'tamuz v'hala mutter b'shabbasos b'chein b'sugudas mitzvah the chol another adaited mehaganother ve'en daito shel Shabbos. And even if you accept it on yourself explicitly that I'm not going to eat meat during the three weeks, so you're still allowed to eat on Shabbos or for a mitzvah. The reason is because when you accepted that upon yourself, you had in mind to do whatever the custom is. And the custom is that people eat meat on Shabbos during the 3 weeks. Unless you had made an official neder, you said something. You said something like this: if you said, I am making a neder, I'm making an oath that I'm not going to eat meat from the 17th of Tammuz until Tisha B'Av, then you shouldn't eat meat on Shabbos, and you really shouldn't make an oath anyway. But if someone did that, that's the deal. Okay, and you hide the shechita knife. We said from Rosh Chodesh Av, Ad Asiri Bav until the 10th of Av, right? Because we keep the customs of the 9 days until the 10th, until noon time, the halachic noon on the 10th day. He says, in a place of a time of pressing need, you can actually, the shochet can shecht on Tisha B'Av after halachic midday. For example, let's say Tisha B'Av falls on Thursday. Everyone holds you're allowed to shecht after midday for Shabbos. Why? Because Shabbos is coming, and the shochet needs to be able to slaughter animals for the entire town. So he has no choice. So on Tisha B'Av itself, after midday, he is allowed to slaughter animals for Shabbos. The Kasav HaMagen Avram, the Eli Rabbah, the Magen Avram and the Eli Rabbah write, he says in our localities, the Christians, they don't eat meat on Fridays and Saturdays. V'shema yitarev lo yimatze kodim l'basar treifa. Mutter lishcho b'yom revi'i v'im lo kenim noim v'lo shachte kadei she'im yitarev yemuchan lo al yom chamishi limkor. So usually what happens is, and still happens in a slaughterhouse nowadays, is that when a sheikh checks something and they find that it's treif, it's not kosher. So in order that they don't lose a lot of money, because very often animals are treif, they sell the animals to non-Jews because they don't have any halachas that they can't eat treif. So here he says the issue is the Catholics, that they don't eat meat on Fridays. I think the customs might have changed, I'm not sure, but at least in the time of the Mishnah Berurah for sure. The Catholics didn't eat meat on Fridays. So if you would shecht on Thursday, then, and the animals became treif, there would be nobody to sell the meat to. So he says here, you could even, if that's the case, you could shecht on Friday, because if the meat became treif, then you would have no one to sell it to, and the shochtim would have a big loss, and they wouldn't shecht at all. So therefore, you're allowed to shecht even on Friday. So lechola, we said, you're allowed to shecht meat for a sick person during the 9 days. Afi lechola katzas, even someone who's a little sick. If the kasav ha'magna ram denagu katzas yodos mish ashibav ve'elachum noam basar v'yayin hainu shelo b'makom chayli. He says that pregnant women would not eat meat from the 7th of Av until the 9th of Av. That's when they're not sick. So a sick person is allowed to eat meat. Someone who's sick a little bit can eat meat during the 9 days. If you have that issue, and I read Rav Eider writes, and I think many write, that it's preferable to eat chicken if you have to eat meat. And they quote from Rav Moshe Feinstein, though, that in the 7th and the 8th day of Av, like right before Tisha B'Av, you really shouldn't. So that would only be Friday this year, because the day before Tisha B'Av this year is Shabbos, so everyone could eat meat. He says, I guess there were certain people that were appointed by the minister that they would sell their meat to non-Jews. So how is that guy going to shech during the 9 days? So he said what he could do is find a sick person. The sick person needs to have a little meat. So you shech the whole animal for a little bit of meat. You could do the same thing on Shabbos, right? Let's say there's somebody who his life is in danger and he has to have a piece of meat, so you could shech the animal, and even though he's only going to have, like a leg or a thigh, you have this whole other animal, that's fine. So you give the thigh to the sick person, and the rest of the animal you could sell to the non-Jews, as is your, the minister or the prince in that locality would sell the rights to sell meat to a specific person. Okay. He says, what else is a sudas mitzvah that someone's allowed to eat meat? A pidyon haben, redemption of the firstborn. But he says, bris milah, you can have meat during the 9 days. Also, people make a siyum, you can have meat. It has to be a siyum on something, on something chashuv, something important. But he adds here that the meal before that people have the night before bris is not considered a sudas mitzvah, that you can have meat during the 9 days. So it's a good time of the year for sushi and for dairy products and for pizza. Patronize your local kosher dairy restaurant. I wish everyone a beautiful day.